I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, let's cover a couple of topics on this blog here. I'm going to try and keep it under 6 or 7 minutes, I hope. Sometimes I ramble on, but let's hit it here. So I just recently went to a insurance seminar put on by BFL. They're one of the big lower mainland insurers here on the strata insurance crisis that's currently going on. This is, I think, my 4th video here in the last 6 months, but this is a hot topic and I'm continuing to kind of learn more here as these stratas start renewing their policies through 2020, getting a lot better bead on where these premiums are at, where these deductibles are going and everything else, because it is a big concern. So this seminar was an hour-and-a-half seminar put on by BFL that answered a lot of questions. So I'll give you guys just some things here that I learned from this. So as we all know, insurance pretty much across the board on these stratas, even with no claims at all, perfectly well-run stratas, you can expect the annual policy, which gets renewed every year on the strata, to go up 100%. And that's what I'm finding as well. No matter what, they're going up 100%. Some a little less, some a little bit more, but these are the best run stratas downtown. If they had a $100,000 annual insurance policy on the strata, that's gone up to 200. And in some cases, again, a little bit more, a little bit less. If the strata has had claims, depending on what those claims were and how major they were, then you can easily be looking at a 200% increase. So I've talked about it before here, you know, three or 4 years ago, the insurance declaration wasn't really all that much on the radar. You had to look at it. Now I'm telling people it's kind of the most important thing you want to look at when you're buying a condo. That's the first thing you want to start asking. And on the listing side, of course, it's one of the first things I ask my seller before we list it. Need to get a copy of the insurance. What's the story with it? What's the deductibles? But here's some interesting information here. The average strata insurance claim for Vancouver is $50,000. That's the average claim. It used to be, according to these guys at BFL a couple years ago, 5 years ago, it was more like 20. So it's gone up more than 100%, which makes sense. You know, buildings are more complicated, finishings are higher end all the time. You get a little flood where a dishwasher floods, it's doing double the damage that it did just 5 years ago. Makes sense. 1 in 3 stratas have a claim in any given calendar 12-month period. 1 in 3. Now, some of these can be very minor that a lot of them don't even trigger the strata's insurance, but you know, 1 in 3 though do trigger the strata's insurance. But you better believe that every year there are probably half a dozen or more water claims and if it's a tower that has 200 or 250 units, you're getting water claims or damage almost on a monthly basis, I bet. But a lot of them, of course, don't trigger the stratas because of the deductible. The owner's insurance policy will cover that. Water damage is 78%. 78% is water claims. That is the thing you got to be so cautious about. Sewer backup is 13%. So between water and sewer, that makes up almost 90% of the claims. 90%. Fire is responsible for less than 7%. So it's all about water, as I've done past blogs on. That's what keeps people up at night, is the water, and why. If you're a homeowner or you're a landlord like me, you've got to educate, especially your tenants, on where the main water shutoff is. Turn your toilets off and turn the sinks off when you go away on vacation, or just turn the master water off if you have a master shutoff. Replace the hoses. Put braided lines on the washing machine. These are all things that the BFL guy went through as well. A lot of it is preventive maintenance. There's been a 30 to 40% reduction in the number of companies that are insuring strata in the lower mainland, which I've blogged about as well. That's one of the other reasons why there's been a number of big insurers that have left the Vancouver market, the lower mainland market. Less competition. That's one of the other reasons why these insurance premiums have been going up. The big thing that this BFL guy, and I did a blog on this earlier this year, the ones that cause the catastrophic damage a lot of times is the dam sprinklers, these sprinkler heads, and people hanging stuff or even accidentally bumping the water sprinkler. There was a story he was saying a guy was moving a mattress, flipped the mattress up, hit the water sprinkler, broke it, catastrophic flood. Many cases where people have hung things on the sprinkler head, causing a tremendous amount of damage. I don't know what it is, 50, 60 gallons a minute comes pouring out of there. One of the best ways to prevent that, which my home inspectors have been talking about for years, installing those sprinkler head covers over the top of all your sprinklers. I'm in the process of doing that with all my units. I was advised not to use a handyman for this because they are so delicate, to hire a fire prevention company that will come out, because you have to be so careful when putting these covers over top. Just the slightest little thing can trigger it. The other thing that BFL was saying, a lot of people have asked, are these insurance, is this the way of the future? Are we going to start getting 100% increases every year here? According to BFL, no. He seems to think that the worst is over. They're telling me that this is a bit of a catch-up thing. According to these guys, stratas have been getting off too cheap for the last 3 or 4 years based on claims. So now these strata or insurers are paying catch-up here. So we hope the worst is over. The other thing I've talked about is starting to do some more preventative education on this stuff. Most of these water claims, as BFL substantiated, are preventable. It's negligence, it's carelessness. So many of these water claims could have been avoided if they didn't hang a thing on the sprinkler head, or they turned the master water off when they went away. Don't run the dishes or run a load of wash and go away. Be home when you do those things. A lot of it could be prevented. Final thing I'll just leave you with here. I'm following a few guys on Twitter that have been talking about the Vancouver House, and I had to have a look at this as well. So the Vancouver House, which is, hugging up on the Granville Bridge, pretty cool building for sure, with the twisted torso. But it's been some interesting things going on here. They got occupancy on that building, I guess, probably about 5 or 6 months ago. I just got my first gander in there last month. I took a look at a couple of units in there. A lot of stuff for sale. There's some price drops going on in there right now that are kind of interesting. I'll give you one here. I'll give you it to you. There's one on the 10th floor here that just got sold. They originally listed it at $704,000. They reduced it to $659,000 and just sold for $620,000. So pretty big drop here, almost $100,000 drop from their original list price. Taxed assessed at $704,000. I went in and looked and see what this guy paid. Now, he would have bought this probably about 6 years ago. Paid $548,000 plus GST. So minus his commissions on this guy is making a little bit of money, maybe 15 or 20K, but not a lot, and a whole lot less than what he thought. And I'm seeing that on quite a few of these sales recently. Now, if you remember, I blogged about this Vancouver house 6 or 7 years ago. If you go back into my archives, I was sitting poolside at the Phoenician Hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona, enjoying a margarita. My wife showed me a copy of the Vanity Fair magazine that she had bought at the gift shop at the hotel, and in there was a full-page, 2-page spread on Vancouver House. So they were really pumping this up to U.S. buyers, and I know they promoted this a lot to overseas buyers in Hong Kong. At the time, they were promoting this building as something called super prime. And I had never heard of the term before, super prime, and one of the most desirable locations in Vancouver. And I kind of called them out on that a little bit. I don't know about being kind of shoehorned in on the Vancouver Bridge there, Granville Street Bridge, if the on-ramp and off-ramp. I kind of questioned that being super prime. It was kind of what we call a remnant lot. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, the architecture is very cool on this building. A Starchitect, what is this? Bjorkel Engels was the designer. He's done a lot, architect. He's done a lot of work all over the world with some pretty prestigious buildings. But most of the people that have bought these, especially the higher floor units, some of them have got incredible views for sure. When you're in the southwest exposure, away from the Granville Street Bridge, you've got unobstructed English Bay views. They're incredible. It's just some of the ones that are on the lower floor, some of the ones facing east, some of the ones facing south on the lower floors, hugging up on the bridge. Those are the ones that are starting to see some pretty good price drops. You know, the other interesting thing, I finally got in there, and you have to realize that when you get a building, and I knew this was coming, and people have been talking about it on Twitter too, when you get an interesting curved building like that, which is very cool, it's an incredible silhouette. But remember, there's a price to pay with that incredible architecture. And it comes at the expense of floor plans. And so far, the ones that I've seen, the floor plans, I would have to say, are not optimal at all. As a matter of fact, from what I hear, and maybe someone can back me up on this, there's barely 2 floor plans that are the same in there. I think they've got something like over 140 different floor plans on a 388 unit strata. So you might have 2 or 3 that are the same, and that's it. Normally on a building that size, you might have 5, 6, or 7 floor plans. This one's got over 130 or 140 floor plans. The other thing, and that's the thing, when you get into these crazy silhouettes, they come at an expense, and that's the floor plan. The best floor plans you can have are in a box, a square box. That's going to give you the best layouts. That's why I think the building across the street, the Pacific by Grosvenor Americas, from what I can see, that is going to be a very, very nice building. And I think the floor plans on there are going to be very good as well. Grosvenor has a very good reputation, and they are building that where it's a square. They're doing some nice things with the balconies, but the interiors, I think, are going to be laid out quite nicely. And you're going to have the same views, not quite as close as the bridge as Vancouver House is. But here's the thing with this one that just sold for $620. That unit was no parking, of course, 474 square feet, but it had 240 square feet of balcony. It actually had 2 individual balconies. And that's been the way I've seen a number of these ones. They're under 500 square feet, and they've got 2 balconies. The outdoor space is half of what the indoor space is. And that ratio is, you know, kind of off. I mean, if you've got a 600 square foot unit, I would expect to have maybe a 60 or 70 square foot covered balcony. That would be a nice usable space. 474 with 240, I mean, hey, that's a big balcony, but that's something you would expect on a 14 or 1500 square foot unit. So that's the thing with the shape of this building. They've got these kind of notched in balconies. So we'll see what go forward. I'm wrong on this one. The original list price, was $800,000. God, I'm wrong on 800, reduced to $799, reduced to $659, sold for $620. Sorry about that. So started at 800, sold for $620. So this guy made a little bit of money on that, paid $548 plus GST, but wow. Not a huge profit after holding it for 6 or 7 years. So it'll be interesting going forward. I'm hearing a lot of stuff on Twitter that I don't know is substantiated. I mean, some people are saying that there's going to be, you know, the way the shape of that building is, it's, you know, could have some issues with maintenance and that kind of thing. I don't know yet. I mean, the lobby is spectacular. You know, it has a rental component in there. From what I understand, the rental component is having a hard time filling out. I think they're only at 40% occupancy in the rental building. That is the low-rise portion that hugs right up underneath the bridge above the Shoppers Drug Mart and the market there. Those units look like they're going to be pretty dark. You know, you've got the bridge above you there. They're asking, I think, $2,200 for a 1-bedroom. So they're pretty expensive. But we'll see moving forward. This is going to be an interesting building to keep an eye on. I'm quite certain that I'm going to have something that I'm going to list in there over the next year or two. So we'll see. But for right now, the stuff that is coming out there is getting slashed. They're still making a little bit of money on it, but nowhere near what they first thought. As I say, this one was first listed January 16th for $800K, sold for $620. So that's a pretty big drop. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.